Hi, I'm Jose in Central Park, one of New York City's most popular attractions. So popular that it receives over 42 million visitors a year, making it the most popular urban park in the country. And we're in Central Park to explore its hidden treasures, the gems scattered all throughout the landscape. So welcome to the heart of Manhattan and a tour to explore the treasures of Central Park. Before we get into our tour, we got to keep in mind that Central Park is a large outdoor space in the middle of Manhattan. If I were to walk from Columbus Circle to 110th Street, it would take me over 2.5 miles. So this tour, I'm going to break it down into sections. Beginning at Section 1, 110th Street into North Meadow. Section 2 will be Jackie Kennedy's Reservoir. Section 3 will be the Great Lawn. Section 4 will be the most famous area, the Central Park Lake. And the final leg of our trip will be the pond at Columbus Circle, and that's where we'll find our exit. The famous Central Park, one of New York City's biggest landmarks. Our tour starts on the north end, entering the park through 110th Street. And we immediately come across the lake called the Harlem Meer. The Harlem Meer was once part of the Dutch village of Harlem, and the name Meer derives from the Dutch word small sea. The construction of the Harlem Meer came from the confluence of 3 water streams flowing from 5th Avenue, 110th Street, and Montaigne's rivulet from the southwest. And looking up towards the lake, you're surrounded by New York City's towering skyscrapers. Central Park has numerous ways to enter, with over 20 gates scattered across the park, but very few are as unique as their Vanderbilt gate. Cornelius Vanderbilt, one of the world's richest businessmen in the 1800s, and also famous for starting the Staten Island Ferry, had a mansion right here in Central Park. The mansion was later demolished, and this gate was all that remained after being donated to the city. It was designed by George B. Post and is now the entrance to the Conservatory Gardens. Let's talk about the hidden treasure in the park, the Conservatory Gardens. It's the only garden of its kind throughout the whole park, and across the lawn is a towering fountain greeting park visitors. As we make our way around the conservatory maze, we discover the Untermeyer Fountain. The fountain was named after prominent New York lawyer Samuel Untermeyer, who donated his land to the people of New York. The Untermeyer Fountain is surrounded by beautifully decorated bushes and has a bronze sculpture in the center. Visitors of all kinds stop to photograph the 3 dancing maidens and the details sculpted by the artists. The water jets rotate to give equal water to each maiden. The artists intended for the dresses to cling to their wet bodies, as if they were perpetually playing and holding hands in the fountain spray. So I make my way into the next area of Central Park's north end, located on a higher plateau right behind the gardens. The British built an overlook during their invasion of Manhattan, connecting to 3 batteries across the park. And what remains at Fort Clinton is a cannon and the visibility to see incoming attacks from Upper Manhattan. So if you follow me, right, and if you look across from here, you're able to see the Harlem Meer over in Central Park. But across, you're able to see the buildings, the skylines of Harlem. Making my way around the North Woods, you see park visitors and what Central Park is known for: riding bicycles, roller skates, or just walking and enjoying the beauty of the park. And with laughter in abundance, we follow the road to the forgotten fortress of the War of 1814. This is probably the quietest attraction in Central Park, the Block House, the oldest surviving building in the park. This fort dates back hundreds of years. The British and Hessians continued their campaign through New Jersey, landing in New York and sealing off Lower Manhattan. The militiamen constructed this fort in preparation of the British invasion. The fort itself was built during the War of 1814, when the United States battled the forces of the United Kingdom. Many visitors might not be aware of this attraction, as it's hidden on a high point within the Central Park North Woods. So why was this position so important to the war? If you look out in the distance, you're able to see the George Washington Bridge. That means right below it is the Hudson River. Central Park has several bodies of water, from the lakes to the ponds and even a waterfall, all man-made from the damming flow and the natural seeps. And the largest body of water is the Jacqueline Kennedy Reservoir, containing 100 acres of the park and over 1 billion gallons of water. The Jacqueline Kennedy Reservoir, named in honor of the First Lady. It's a decommissioned reservoir that was part of the Croton Aqueduct, and while the reservoir makes up the majority of the area, we can still find attractions like tennis courts. The reservoir has acted as a backdrop in countless iconic movies, like Breakfast at Tiffany's and Marathon Man. It's played a role in bringing pop culture to life. Central Park is an icon to New York City and the most popular urban park in America. It's also the most filmed location in the world, with a resume of over 225 films, all well-deserved for this giant landscape in the heart of the city. From above the park, we emulate the phrase of concrete jungle, a park surrounded by an endless grid of skyscrapers. Central Park was created to bring back nature to the blossoming urban city and remove the stresses that came with city life. That story still holds true for a park that's almost 200 years old. New Yorkers are spread all over the park, making it a wonderful escape anytime you visit. And wandering around the park, you almost forget you're still surrounded by one of the world's busiest cities. Moving on, we make it to the Great Lawn and encounter the attraction of the Belvedere Castle. I look out the window while making my way to the tower and see the Turtle Pond. Belvedere is a folly of a castle created just for the park, with a Romanesque and Gothic architecture. From here, you're able to see the stunning views of the city, as this attraction has become one of the most popular in Central Park. The Belvedere Castle sits high on Vista Rock, making it a great point to measure the weather. Now let's go to the tower. These steps narrow. But I have no cell phone signal here. You can just tell how fortified this castle is. Thank you. At the highest point in the park is the Belvedere Castle. That's right, a castle right in the middle of Manhattan. Now it acts as an instrument for the National Weather Service. But the story of Central Park isn't all poetic attractions. Reading these markers reminds us that these lands once belonged to the Seneca Village, a village first settled by freed African Americans, then adding Irish and German immigrants. Together, they built a community that was dispersed for the park's land. This story brings us back to the reality that even the most glamorous landmarks contain a troubled history.
like a little bridge, and then
The Central Park Lake could be called one of the most famous areas in the park. Central Park has plenty of hills and bodies of water, and one of the many ways to get around is by bridge. The park has a total of 31 bridges, with the most famous being the Bow Bridge. The Bow Bridge is a Victorian-era styled bridge spanning 87 feet across Central Park Lake. It makes it the longest and most iconic of all the park bridges. Between the stunning bridges and rowboats, this is the Central Park of the postcards. It's made up of the second largest body of water in the park, where romanticism is in full swing from the picturesque environment. Central Park is the 6th most popular place in the world to get engaged. To get a full glimpse of its popularity, you just have to attempt to cross the Bow Bridge. You'll be held up with hundreds of visitors who are busy taking photos. The Bow Bridge's cast iron design and beautiful details make it one of the most memorable in the park, connecting from the southern shore to the Ramble. The gondolas are reminiscent of the famed gondolas of Venice, further filling in the elements of the real-life Neo-Impressionism painting. And behind the bushes, we see the Bethesda Terrace, which marks the next stop on our tour. Quoting Beatles guitarist John Lennon, "New York is what Paris was in the 20s, the center of the art world. And we want to be in the center. It's the greatest place on earth." Lennon passed away in his Dakota apartment across from Central Park, and to honor the singer, his wife Yoko Ono approved a living memorial in the park, Strawberry Fields, and the words of one of his most famous songs are inscribed in this memorial. Imagine. The Bethesda Terrace. It's possibly one of the most iconic attractions in all of New York City. On this sunny day, the lower passage adds a silhouette at the edge of the tunnel, where we see the activity on the other end. The terrace was one of the first structures built in Central Park, making a connection in the lower passage from the mall to the Bethesda Fountain. Bethesda Terrace is known as the heart of the park, which is something Frederick Olmsted feared when designing the park. He planned for the park to be nature over architecture. Stepping out onto the terrace, I see the crowd hovering around the Angel of Water sculpture. The sculpture is an 8-foot bronze statue showcasing a winged female angel. The angel is surrounded by 4 cherubs that represent temperance, purity, health, and peace. The Angel of Water sculpture is a one-of-a-kind in the park. All other works of art have been donated, while the Angel of Water sculpture was the only piece commissioned by the park's designers. And this heat brings all kinds of visitors, like this pup basking in the fountain's water. When combining the total measurements of the fountain, it reaches 26 feet high by 96 feet wide, almost the same width as the distance of baseball bases. This makes the fountain one of the largest fountains across New York City's 5 boroughs. The Bethesda Terrace was intended to be a gathering place for park visitors, and this beautiful day brings the crowds in record numbers to the city that never sleeps. So let's move on from the terrace to our next stop, leading to Columbus Circle. It's been a long day. We've been walking for about 8 hours, so by the end of all this, I'm going to share the metrics of how much exercise we've done. It's time to explore our final area, the mall, near the exit of the park. The mall was originally intended to be an open-air reception hall.
Look how beautiful that guy is. Classic.
It's one of the few straight walkways in the park. Its wide passage was built in a manner to accommodate carriages crossing the park. And now, it's a full passage for park visitors to gather and experience the New York flair. In the mall, we see the pioneers of women's rights, Susan B. Anthony, Elizabeth Stanton, and Sojourner Truth. But our exit nears Columbus Circle, where we see the towering buildings of 59th Street, and the Pond and Umpire Rock make up the remains of this area. Central Park is the balance to slow down this busy city and reintroduce the concrete jungle to a side of nature. And New Yorkers are that much more thankful to enjoy the peace of the outdoors.
Looks like we made it to the other side. So bring up the calculations, because I think we clocked in at least 12 hours. It's been a long day and a heck of an adventure. Thank you for joining me on this giant tour of Central Park. I'm Jose, and if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share. If you want to see more videos, click the subscribe button to join the tour across America. If you want to find out more about Central Park, please see the links below. Until next time.